everybody. This is Paul Wing, and I've come to tell you the story of the little engine that could. Do you hear that locomotive bell? Well, the engine that belongs to that bell was pulling a little freight train. It wasn't the longest train there ever was, but I guess it was about the happiest train there ever was, because all its cars were full of nice things for boys and girls. There were cars full of toy animals, toy giraffes with long necks, teddy bears with short necks, baby giant pandas with almost no necks at all, toy cows that mooed like that when you turned them upside down, toy lions that roared like that when you squeezed their stomachs. And there was a toy baby elephant. At the end of his trunk, he held a toy elephant bell that tinkled like that. Then there were dolls with blue eyes and curly yellow hair, and dolls with brown eyes and curly brown hair. And when you squeezed their stomachs, they said, "Mama." Then there was a clown, a toy clown with a flag, who kept running over the top of the train from one car to another, waving his flag and keeping all the other toys and dolls happy and laughing. And there were cars full of airplanes, with aviators sitting in them. Oh, and every other kind of thing that boys and girls could possibly wish for. Now that train was carrying all those nice things from the town of Hither, where they were all made, to the town of Yon, where all the boys and girls lived who could possibly wish for them. Between Hither and Yon there was a very high mountain. It was about that high. And of course, to get from Hither to Yon, the train had to go right over the top of the mountain. But before it got to the mountain, it had to cross a very broad, flat prairie. It was as broad and as flat as that. Well, as the train started out from Hither to Yon, it sounded like this. It began to move very slowly. Then it went faster and faster, until at last it was going at full speed. And as its wheels rattled over the joints in the rails, they seemed to be saying, lickety-split, 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 lickety-split. And I guess that train was not only one of the happiest trains that ever was, but also it was one of the noisiest trains that ever was. Because whenever it came to a curve in the tracks, the dolls and toys would be thrown against one another, and that would make a sound like this. And the toy clown kept running backward and forward over the tops of the cars from the front end of the train to its very rear end, waving his flag and keeping all the other toys and dolls happy and laughing. That's the way it sounded whenever the train went around a curve. And of course, all the time the train was getting closer and closer to the high mountain between Hither, where the toys were all made, and Yon, where the boys and girls all lived. But all of a sudden, when the train was only a short distance from the mountain, something went wrong. Instead of going like this, the little train began to go like this. Until at last it just couldn't go any farther at all. Its little engine had broken down. Well, the dolls and toys all stopped laughing, and the clown stopped waving his flag and running backward and forward over the tops of the cars, because it certainly looked as though they would never get to Yon to give the boys and girls their toys and dolls. The toy clown jumped off the train and sat down beside the tracks and began to think. He thought so hard that wheels spun round in his head like this. Then he had an idea. There is more than one way of getting over the mountain, he said. And he went to the freight cars that carried the airplanes. Listen, boys, he said to the aviators. All we have to do is start the motors of your airplanes, and they will pick up the train and fly it across the mountain. So one by one, the aviators started the motors of their airplanes. And then, when they got them all running, they made them go faster. And slowly but surely, the train began to move. The clown jumped on, and from the whole train a cheer went up. But the train didn't go nearly as fast as when the engine had been pulling it, and it didn't fly up into the air as the clown had thought it would. When the dolls and toys saw it was not going to fly over the mountain, they were disappointed. The cheer that had gone up before went down. And the moment the train began to go up the mountain, it began to slow down. And the upper it went, the downer it slowed, until at last it just stopped stock still. The clown saw that they had come to a switch where another track ran into the track the little freight train was on. And the clown said, "Aha! There are more than two ways of getting over the mountain." For coming toward them on the other track, he saw a shiny new engine. The clown waved his flag, and the engine stopped. The clown bowed politely and said, "How do you do? As you can see, our engine has broken down. So will you please switch yourself over onto our track and pull our train over the mountain to yon? And if you'll put on the next record, you'll find out what the shiny new engine said." Well, the clown said, "Will you please pull our train over the mountain?" The shiny new engine looked down over his cowcatcher with his headlight eye. There was a nasty sneer on the front of his big round boiler. And he said, "I pull that train?" He drew himself up to the full height of his smokestack and said, "Listen, I am a passenger engine, and I have just pulled a fine train over the mountain with more cars than you have ever dreamed of. Sleeping cars, a dining car, and parlor cars where people look out of plate glass windows and count the white horses in the pastures they pass. I pull the likes of you? I guess not." And with that he began to huff and puff. And he started up and steamed off to the roundhouse, where engines live when they're not out pulling cars. And the dolls and toys were all very disappointed. All except the clown. He said, "Listen to me. There are more than 3 ways of getting over the mountain." And he said, "Every able-bodied toy will now get out and push." But the little engine said, "Oh, dear, I don't believe that will work." "I don't believe it won't work," said the clown, "because we haven't tried it. Come on," he said. So the toys and dolls all tumbled out of the little cars and began to push the little train. And the toy elephant put his head against the very last car, and he pushed, too. And slowly the little train began to move. But it moved so slowly that at last they all stopped pushing. They could see it was no use. And they were all terribly discouraged. But just then, the clown heard something. And coming toward them, he saw a fine, big, strong engine. The clown ran down the track, waving his flag at the big, strong engine, and the engine came to a stop. The clown bowed politely and said, "How do you do?" And the engine said, and the clown said, "As you can see, we are in trouble." And the engine said, "Ha, you probably deserve it." And he carelessly shrugged his cylinders. But the clown went right on talking. "Our engine is broken down," he said. "So will you please switch yourself over onto our track and pull our train over the mountain to yon?" But the engine said, "Me? Me pull that dinky train over the mountain? Listen," he said. "I am an important freight engine. I have just pulled a train over the mountain with more freight cars than you have ever dreamed of. And a caboose," he added. "I am a very important engine indeed, and I will not pull the likes of you." And waving a front wheel disdainfully at the little freight train, he puffed off angrily to the roundhouse. The dolls and toys were all terribly disappointed, all except the toy clown, because being a clown, he was very hard to disappoint. He said, "Listen to me. that freight engine is not the only engine in the world, because I think I hear another one coming right now. And you can find out whether it really was another engine just by turning this record over. Well, coming toward them, there was another engine. This one looks very old and tired, said the clown, but our train is so little, perhaps he can help us. He waved his flag frantically. The clown bowed politely and said, "How do you do?" The rusty old engine sighed sadly and said, "I feel terrible." "I'm very sorry to hear that," said the clown sympathetically. And then he explained how the little engine had broken down. And he said, "Please, sir, will you pull our train over the mountain?" But the rusty old engine only sighed again. A weary tear escaped from his safety valve and ran down over his boiler. He shook his cowcatcher sadly and said, "I must rest my rheumatic wheels. I cannot pull even so little a train as yours." And then he chugged off to the roundhouse, saying, "I cannot, I cannot, I cannot, I cannot, I cannot, I cannot." Well, the dolls and toys were all frightfully disappointed, but not the little clown, for just then they heard a whistle. And a very little bright blue engine chugged merrily up to them and stopped. "What is the matter, my friends?" the little blue engine asked. So the clown explained their trouble. "My," said the little blue engine, "I'm not very big. They only use me for switching in the yards. I've never been over the mountain. But at least I can try." Well, the clown said, "Do you really think you can do it?" And the little blue engine replied, "Yes, I think I can." And then the little blue engine backed into the little freight train and coupled onto it. As the clown jumped on the first car, the one just behind the little blue engine, he asked anxiously, "Are you sure you can pull us over the mountain?" And as she started pulling, the little blue engine said, "I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can." Well, the little blue engine pulled and pulled up the mountain until, as she got closer and closer to the top, the little train began to go slower and slower. They were almost at the very top of the mountain. Just a few more chugs and they'd be over. The little engine was pulling just as hard as she could. The clown was worried. He said, "Do you think you can make it?" And the little blue engine said, "I think I can, I 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 thought I could, 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 I thought I could." And so the boys and girls in the town of Yarn, on the other side of the mountain, got their toys after all. And that is the story of the little engine that could.